Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Uniquely Designed. You know, I am always biased, unashamedly biased, because I have so many different people that I'm connected with. And I am not selfish, though, because I don't like to keep those people that are close to me or that I know to myself. So I like to share whoever it is that I'm connected with you. And today is no less of this type of conversation than someone that I get to introduce and the pleasure of having a conversation with. And that is American politician and attorney and U.S. Air Force colonel and a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ,
Right.
Stevenson. So I am so happy to have you with me today. And thank you for taking this time to have this conversation. How are
I
you?
am thrilled. I'm thrilled to be here with you. I love your energy. I love all you're doing to make this community a space for all people. So anytime I can be a part of someone that's doing the work, someone that's following what God actually says, that part about love all people, I'm happy to help.
Well, I wanted to start there actually, because being that you are in politics and many times, especially in the church community, you don't, when we talk about politicians, we're always like, you can't believe nothing they say. And all that, so many different things that have been said as far as in the church. And a lot of times they've been said rather ignorantly because people sometimes want to throw some type of weight on people to bring them down before they even understand them. But what I believe and what I most love about you is that I believe, and I want to lead in with this, I believe that your call is not to be, and I think it's even a part of your platform, not to be a politician, but to be a spokesperson for the people, which hinges more on ministry than just trying to be somebody who's having talking points and stuff. So do you believe that, or do you believe that that calling has followed you for many years that would cause you just to land where you are right now? Or is it something that you like, I didn't feel like that was a calling. I landed to it. Then I realized it was a calling. How did you merge those two together?
Well, my grandfather and my grandmother started a church 75 years ago, where I'm now a ordained minister. And so we grew up in the church. My grandmother and grandfather had 15 children, and my mother was one of 15. And my grandmother had a dream that one day when I was born, that I would go to college. She was born at a time when she didn't have access to any of the governmental systems. She was looked down upon, and she lived in a world where she, as a Black woman, was not valued and had few rights. And this was in the 40s and the 30s. But she had a dream for me that one day I could live in a different world, that one day I could do the things she couldn't do. She dropped out of sixth grade, got married at the age of 14. And when I was born, she decided some way, somehow, she would find 10 cents a month to get an insurance policy so I could go to college. And so and I didn't understand it at the time because I used to live with them. This guy with a big accordion folder would come by and would write in when she paid her dime. And I didn't understand all of that. It was just weird to me as a kid. And my grandmother died unexpectedly. And she, at the age of 49. And when I turned 18, the insurance company gave me the policy. See, my grandmother dreamed a world for me that she didn't think she would ever experience. She had no idea that I would be in the Middle East acting on behalf of America, that I would be a colonel in the Air Force, that I would be a lawyer, have my own law firm. She had no idea what would come of her commitment, but she was committed. And she used to tell me all the time that if you got one slice of bread, you share it. Whatever you got, you share it. You've got to make the community better. That's why we are here. And we would stay in church. That's back during the time when we stayed in church all day.
You have to define all day to people now. What is
Oh
that?
my gosh. We go for Sunday school at 8 o'clock. We go through Sunday school, stop for a little breakfast. Then we go to church. And church service did not end at 1 o'clock. It ended when the Holy Spirit left.
Yes.
And it could be at 4 o'clock.
You can have afternoon service or evening service too.
And then you have to go back to evening service. So we were in the church all day. Now, when you think about it, in the 20s and 30s and 40s, you get your power to go out and face the world from your faith. You've got to get built up to go be abused. You got to get built up to go deal with. You've got to get built up to know that you are somebody. And it was the church that did that. Yeah. Now, when I was a kid, I would say, why do you have to pray and preach? Can y'all choose? Oh my God. Oh, so
because sometimes at that time the prayer would turn into a sermon.
Oh yes.
Depending on who was praying.
Depending on who was praying.
And I want to ask, as it relates to, and I know that your faith stems and reaches far back to your grandparents, your parents, your grandfather starting the church. And I know it's very much a strong part of what you do now, not just your life, but even your platform. I wanted to ask you, do you feel that, because sometimes I was blessed to have been raised with older, not just grandparents, but, I grew up in a small community in Western Kentucky that everybody was your uncle, your aunt, and you would get in trouble maybe 3 times before you got home, and then get in trouble again by your parents, and it was that community that was very invested in, like, when someone died or some accident happened, it affected the community. It wasn't just the news. It was something that everybody would come over to that person's house and bring. I don't know why we always brought chicken, but chicken and cake and all that type of stuff. You have chicken for days, but and I don't know, and I'm asking, I don't know if it was faith that brought us together, not just talking about church, but a common belief in something. Yes. So do you feel that is being attacked and right now across the nation, that not just our spiritual area epicenter, but just that faith in a common good of all things that brings us together?
Yeah, if you have a community of people that, whether they went to church or not, they were impacted by the people that went to church. Like, even the heathens knew how to act around church folk and what to do. And they were accepted on that basis. When you have that community, everybody is invested. So when we came home from school, if the lady, our neighbor, had to tell me to stop running, and then she told mom that she told me to stop running, I got in trouble twice because the neighbor had to remind me that girls don't run. Not that ever happened to me. It was like real hot.
I got a flashback.
And then secondly, I got in trouble for running. So that built in. And then to further emphasize that community that came together no matter what. There are 2 instances. My mom had 15 brothers and sisters, and every weekend, because we didn't live in a place where there were places for Black folk to gather, our house was the place. The kids were upstairs, the adults were in the basement. And everything happened at our house. We had a pot of chili on Friday, a pot of vegetable soup on Saturday. The kids went to Sunday school on Sunday, so the adults could recuperate for work on Monday. And we knew nothing else but the importance of family. Whatever problems we had came there. Whatever needed to happen came there. We figured out together how to resolve the issues facing that community. Secondly, they pushed. You've got to make this community better. That's your job. So my dad always was out in the streets helping young boys that didn't have fathers. He put a basketball rim in the back court so they could have a safe place to play basketball. He froze jugs of water. You can't come in the house, but I am going to make sure you got some food and some water while you're playing basketball. And then when they had trouble, he would get up out of the bed and go see what was happening at the house next door. Now try that today. And you could get in trouble with the person that that's getting in trouble. So the sense of community is vital to a powerful community. That's why that is always attacked first. If we can make you fight against each other, number one, then number two, if we can take our hate against you and have you replicate it, then you guys can hold each other down and we can look like a rose. And then number three, if we can make you think that things could be better if certain other people weren't around, then we can divide the community, because we're going to be fighting about those three things instead of marching in the same direction. So community is vital.
Do you believe that, because when we go back to thinking about how faith, community, the church was a part of the, I would say, it would let you know the temperature of what was going on in the community, in the neighborhood, in the city, in the world, or whatever, because a lot of times in the churches or even in those different areas, there would be the NAACP meetings, there would be the different politicians would come there and meet under the underground or whatever, or you would have the announcements that would come there. Things would be galvanized there. Do you feel that the community aspect has been attacked? Where do you feel the trust started to erode in people that we would go out and represent people of color or minorities or whatever, and then they wouldn't do what they said they would do? So then it would have become, now when people would come to the churches or to the communities, they would sit there looking at them, like, what you got to say type of thing. How do you feel that level of trust and has just gone down over the years?
Well, when President Lincoln freed the slaves, and many slaves didn't find out until a year later, or while we have Juneteenth, when that general rode into Texas and said, slaves, you're free. Many of them didn't know how to spell free. Many of them didn't know what it was, but they marched out of Texas and they built historically Black colleges. They built Black Wall Street. They built Black churches, and they made the Black churches the community where you could live, where you could thrive, where you could be somebody, and you could fulfill God's purpose in your life. And for a while, during the Jim Crow era, everybody said that was fine. Black folk over here, other folk over here. We had no rights. If you recall, they would say, send the preacher downtown to get him out of jail. Send the preacher downtown to ask this delicate question about why that person was lynched. The preacher was the leader in the community that was seen as backed by God and had a lot of rapport with the white community, so that it wasn't many she's, could get things done on behalf of his community. So then things opened up a little. Nothing wrong with things opening up. And we started reaping the benefits of the promise of America. That you could do anything, be anything, go any place, go to school anywhere, have your life be expressed. And we started to dilute the community. And when we did that, we were happy to be able to do things we couldn't do before. But it took away from some of the things we were doing that got us where we were. So if I had one hope, we got everything we need to be successful. We have everything we need to be a powerful voting bloc. We have everything we need to fulfill the promise of generations that are to come. Because we've got more than any other generation, the Dr. King generation, the 30s. We've got more. We've got more money, more cars, more houses, more everything, except unity. Now, if the Montgomery bus boycott were to happen today, you're not going to get no folk to walk for a year. We have a different set of expectations. And we also have things, we always had the family unit. And the family unit is under assault too. And I mean under assault, meaning we're not giving kids what they need. We're not giving parents what they need. We're not giving, no matter what the family is, we're not giving them what they need to thrive.
Yeah.
If you are a parent and you have to work 3 jobs,
yeah,
then when do you have time to be a family? And it's not your fault you're working 3 jobs. It could be called the minimum wage, $7.50. So we get so busy because life gets thrown at us. And if we could just take a deep breath and throw back at life together, a little bit of unity will go a long way.
Yeah. What I have felt has been your most natural draw is that you love out loud. And that is from many areas, not just in your exuding of a genuine affection for people, but even in your passion on display. Like it is always, when you grab a microphone, like if we were to be preaching on the same thing or speaking on the same platform, I would ask kindly, would they let me go before you? I have no desire to do anything after you get finished. I'll sing before you. I'll tap dance before you. I'll whatever, but I will not do after you because your passion, your way of grabbing the hearts of people, even recently, how you were maybe not trying to do a whole lot with social media, but your social media platforms have just skyrocketed because there are people who practice for years to do what you do naturally. They practice just to have some modicum of fake passion, but it just comes out of you. Does that, I always ask this question with the people I interview, is there anybody in your family or past that they look at you and say, now, you act just like, or you got that from, or where do you believe that type of deep rooted passion comes from?
I would have to say my family and my faith. My mom, when I was in the Air Force, she would send me clippings. Like when the Supreme Court justice would retire, she would say, baby, you need to get this job. In her mind, there was nothing I couldn't do. And she still, to this day, I have both of my parents. She still, to this day, is my biggest cheerleader. And she's the source of make this community better and do the work. So when I was 9 years old, the adults were talking and about all the problems in the world. And I said, well, God gave us an answer. He said, all we have to do is love each other. Why aren't y'all loving each other? And they're like, did anybody ask you to say anything? At that time, even in the 60s, children would be heard, or seen and not heard.
Heard, yeah. Yeah.
And my mom would always say, encourage us to read books. Like they got married as teenagers, and she found a way to get me books in the mail once a month so I could read. She didn't know how she was going to pay the electric bill. And I would go to the mailbox every day. She said, baby, the books only come once a month. And then she would sit and read them to me. And she would say, you could go anywhere in this world in a book. So my mother and father demonstrated what it is to be a global citizen. Then secondly, when I was in the Air Force, I traveled to 11 different countries. I went to the Middle East. I went to war-torn countries. I went to Africa 3 times. I went to Sierra Leone after they had the wars was over. Italy, Germany, England. And when I went to the Middle East, where I knew they didn't appreciate short Black women, I took God with me. And when they opened up that door of the plane and I was hit by heat that I had never felt before in my life, I was okay. Because I just said a prayer right then and there. I said, thank you, God, for coming with me. I hope you're hot too. And even in the Middle East, we stopped everything so they could pray 5 times a day. And I said, well, I'm in the Middle East. I'm going to pray to my God 5 times a day. And the difference, short prayers, they don't pray for a long time, but they would sound the horn and we go pray. I go back to my little tent and I would pray to my God. And I really love that. I had such a close relationship with God at that time. And I became convinced that love never fails. God says it all the time. It never fails. It never fails. It never fails. Now, it looks like it's failing. But I've got to believe what he said. He's perfect. So I just need to do the work, stand where he tells me to stand, and love all of his people, even the ones I don't like.
Yeah, and I think that that's a beautiful thing because it's something that is said oftentimes across different platforms, not just political, but even ministry-wise. People say we got to love all people, but it's not always. Sometimes it's talking points, but it's not on display. What I see, what you're doing oftentimes, it's not just a talking point. It flows out of you as if that is you. As some people sometimes say in the street, game recognizes game. Like they can tell if it's fake or not.
Oh yeah.
You have that type of, when you were talking about gender equality and different things. It wasn't just something that you were seeming to have like these things I want to say, I want to hit these points. It was almost as if y'all gonna hear me, you're gonna hear me right now. Like if you call yourself and you say y'all sitting here and you're voting on these things and taking away, and I was just watching it. And the thing is that we have, I do feel strongly as far as in this era with social media and different things, we don't know how to disagree even with love. Like we have to disagree and tear each other down instead of you're going to hear me. You don't have to agree with it. But these are the truths. Now you decide what you want to do with it. And that's the approach that you stand on. And you seem to take many things, not just that particular topic, but all things. It's like, you're going to hear me what you do with it. But this
you get to choose. It's like the Kentucky legislature is made up of 80 Republicans and 20 Democrats. So in order for Kentucky to move forward, we must work together. Now, I don't necessarily appreciate everything that comes out of their mouth, but I said I would listen and find some common ground that we can agree on, or know that that's one of the issues we have to set aside and work on the things we do agree on. I tell them all the time, I've been married 41 years. And while I would like to say my husband agrees with everything I say and do, and I do say that when he's not around, that we have set unnecessarily high expectations to think that we could come in a public forum and we must agree on everything before we can move forward. I'd say let's work. If we work on the things we agree on, that children should be fed, that there should be no homelessness, that veteran and homelessness should not be in the same sentence, those things, if we work on those things that we agree on, we'll move Kentuckians forward. We'll be the state that's known for how you take care of families and people. And sometimes I do get exasperated. Sometimes I'm listening and I'm talking, and I have a promise to myself to engage with love. Means I'm going to say what needs to be said, but I'm not going to talk about your mama. And so sometimes when I leave the conversation and I say, I'll be back, and they always say, where are you going? I said, I got to go find some love. So I'll be back.
I'm going to go find it. I had heard forever First Lady Michelle Obama say once her statement about when they go low, we go high. And she was asked, does she always go high? She said, oh no, I go low first. I go low. I go real low. She said, but then by the time I have finished going low, by the time I respond, I go high. So when you said I have to go find love, that is a very good way of dealing with those type of issues, because you could respond immediately and impulsively, but that you go away so you can find love so that it can be consistent with what message you're trying to make sure is coming from you.
Because I gotta say it in the way they can hear it. It's like Joe, can't think of his last name, Madison, the Black Eagle says, put it down where the goats can get it. If I'm talking to you badly and you're already defending yourself, you can't hear anything I'm saying. But if I can speak to, this is the impact on me, this is the impact on my community, these are the numbers. Now, can we just do one line at a time? You agree with that? You agree with that? So when we finish this whole thing, how is it you come out on this side? What can we do? I've got to be the adult in the room. Now, I would tell you, I always say, don't get mad. Put 5 women in the room, we'd have world peace. Because women think globally, like, how do I get all the kids where they need to be?
And I was going to ask that as it related to 2 areas that you have had to stand ground on, or probably be a source of pressing through, is being not only a woman but also Black.
Yeah.
In the Commonwealth of Kentucky, that is not, I still to this day travel different places, and they'll ask me where I'm from, and I'll say Kentucky. They'll say, oh, there's Black people there. I'm like, yes, we are here. But how has that just been or how do you, not only say how has it been, I can imagine how it's been, but to be able to be your most authentic self at all times, no matter what the audience or the people look like, and you are the minority, oftentimes speaking on behalf of people who are not in the room.
Someone asked me in the legislature one time, one of the leaders asked me, do you always say what goes across your mind? And I said, no, because some of it could land me in jail. But I'm going to say enough so that God's purpose can be fulfilled. That all people, and it's in your Constitution, in your Declaration of Independence, that all people, and I'm changing the word man to people, all people are created equal and endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, which means you can't take them away because you're a man. And if I speak to you with love, I have a better shot of you answering me with love. It might still be a no, but it might get in. And it takes a lot of energy. Because when you have talking points, people talking at each other, and it's not really about the issue, but their opinion, then we get nowhere. Number 2, I don't take what comes out of your mouth as the gospel truth. If you call me a short Black woman, I'm going to go check. So I'm not going to take on your issues by agreeing with them. I was talking to a Republican woman, and she was telling me all the things wrong with the Democratic Party. She went on for about 5 minutes. And when she finished, I said, is there anything else? She said, no. I said, well, can you give me $2,100 for my campaign? She's like, I just told you I'm a Republican. And what's wrong with you guys? I said, and you've got the money to give me $2,100 so I can do good. She started laughing. She said, I'm going to give you something because you got a lot of nerve. What comes out of your mouth is your opinion. It is not God's words. It doesn't shape who I am. I've been called colored. Do I start acting that way? No, I'm like, okay, and the person that did it was a 90-year-old man that was trying to pay me a compliment. He'd never seen a Black colonel. And he wanted to know if he could take a picture with me. So
I had experience once. I lived in the South for a while, a deeper South in Kentucky, and I went to this particular local market because that area did not have a major franchise of a store, and this white couple had walked to their car, and I could tell they were struggling getting stuff in their car. They were older. So I said, hey, I can help you put that in your car, put it in your car. I said, I'll take the buggy back. And the lady looked at me and she said, you're one of the nice coloreds. And I said, I'm sorry, what did you what did you say? She said, you're one of the nice colors. And after the blood kind of settled in my body, I realized they didn't mean any harm by it. They just thought that that was, good to say. So I know that type of, some people in their mind, they don't think there's anything wrong with that.
It's just like I'm convinced that 1,000 years from now, they'll look back at us and figure out, why are y'all calling yourselves the hate word? Why did y'all adopt that as a measure of honor? And we'll say it was the times or whatever we would say. But we had, it's, that's why you got to listen more than you talk. Me and my husband saw, she was about 70-year-old. She was a white lady, and she was walking down the street crying. What? And she said, we couldn't just let her keep walking down the street. It was the Black neighborhood. I didn't know why she was there, but I know she was walking down the street crying. We went to ask her, could we help? And she said, I don't know where I'm at, and I don't know where I'm supposed to be going, but the cab driver got tired of driving me around and he put me out. And I said, well, do you know your name? And she told me. I said, where were you going? You was talking to her like we were having cake and coffee. She said, my daughter is going to take care of me. And I was going to her house. And I'm like, well, why don't you get in the car and we can drive around and see if we can find your daughter. And we drove around and around and around. And finally, I told my husband, there is a frantic looking white woman that way. And it was her mother. She was frantic because it had been a couple of hours. And when we got there, she said, these nice colored people, I don't know where I would be without them because the cab driver put me out. Okay, I'm not going to tackle this woman. I'm not going to do anything in that situation. It was just what she knew. She was in trauma. So I have to listen. Now, there's some people that say things like babe, and they're going to get a fight because I know what they meant. But I've got to listen, and I've got to fight the way God instructs me to fight. Like I don't, when I did my fancy farm speech, we were supposed to tell jokes about our opponent and all of that. And I said, I'm going to tell jokes about what they say, but I'm not going to talk about the way a person looks. I will not. I did say he was boring, but that's not how he looks.
I want to have this conversation just not just from the stance of, all of the, they can research and find out different things as far as your platform is different as concerned, but the heart behind what you do and the heart behind why you do what you do. And I want to know how there are many people as well who are younger and wanting to get involved and wanting to stand up for what's right and justice, and they see different things that are going on. We have those different representatives in Tennessee who they tried to remove them, and now they are back. How can another generation that's coming up start to engage and not just another generation, but even people who sit by and watch TV or watch debates and watch different things and talk about it, but never get involved and engaged and on local, civic or any level? How can people move from just talking about problems, but being like you were with as a 9-year-old, I think you said, to the people like, y'all need to start seeing love. How can we rally around? And I say that because you intersect between ministry and political arenas as well. And you don't often see in churches the social engagement ministry or the civil, any of those different things that are raising up people to start to even understand what's going on and how does God fit in that? What does God say about that? And what do we do? And how do we, because everybody's not going to be a pastor. Everybody's not going to be a deacon. Everybody's not going to be a missionary or evangelist or a worship leader. There are people like you and others that will stand on those stand in those rooms and be able to make sure there's legislation that is passed for people that are affected in those pews. So how do we do a better job of getting people engaged in the areas that matter most?
Yeah. Well, part of it is one, we have to find a way for the organizations to work together, like the NAACP, the Urban League, this nonprofit, that nonprofit, the churches. And even if it's around the table, you've got the government, the nonprofits, the business, the churches, the community guy. And if we started with something small, like on the 10th of August in 2025, we're going to make sure that all 13-year-old girls have a brand new dress. And we work towards that. We work backwards from that. So we can start building the muscle of being united. We do the small things and experience some success. Everybody gets to still be the organization they are, but we get to do it together. Number two, people, you've got to believe that God put you here for a purpose. And everybody's got a different purpose. He didn't just make you. He made you with a purpose. And what is up to us to do is to discover that purpose, stand in that purpose, and not use the excuses that are easy to use, because I've used them. I wait till I lose 10 pounds. Wait till the kids are grown. Wait till while life is happening. We get to say, this is who I am. When I have my 90th birthday party, they will celebrate me because around me, love flourished. They will celebrate my birthday because around me, the community got better by this amount. I like specific, measurable results. And when you know who you are in Christ, I am. When you know who you are, whether you believe in God or something, you got to believe in something bigger than self. Maybe you believe in the promise of America, which, by the way, is based on God. Maybe you believe in democracy. Then it requires certain things. So when people come at you, and they will, I know who I am. I'm clear about it. I heard it in a James Cleveland song. Then people can't knock you. But if someone says, for example, you ain't good and you ain't never gonna be no good, and you live in that for a year, that's a year of your life, a year away from your purpose. And we do that all the time. We take other people's words as the gospel truth. I did it. At one point when I was in the high school, the 12th grade, freshman in college, I thought, you know what? I'll be the president of the United States of America. And I was at boot camp, and I told this guy, I don't even know what his name is. We were doing boot camp exercises. And he said, he said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to serve my time, and I'm going to be the president of the United States of America. And he says, you do know they would never elect a black to be the president of this country. And I'm like, wow, he's right. There are no blacks. And so I changed my agenda based on a now known, probably a thug, ain't doing nothing person that just had an opinion. So we give our power to others by giving their opinions life. Now, I was able to decide for myself, when I take my last breath, what are the things that I want to have accomplished and done for people? And I'm going to check those off. We just had recently, my sister-in-law passed this week. And We were at the funeral home making arrangements. And they wanted the ashes in a box that they could spread out over the ocean, her children. And the funeral director said, "Did she love the ocean?" And they said, "No, but she always wanted to go." And I'm like, she wasn't expecting to die last week. And we act like we're going to live forever. Take action now. Everybody can do something. If it's 30 minutes of phone time, 30 minutes of door knocking, 30 minutes of filling out envelopes and stuffing envelopes, a week, a month, whatever you got to do to make your life work and make democracy work, do it. You've got the time. I had to cut off some of my time of Housewives of Atlanta. I know they're going to be mad at me. But I have to choose. Do I want to quit, run this election, or watch Housewives of Atlanta? So I had to let it go. And my other one, 600 pound, it took me a little bit longer to let go of 600 pound life. But I did. Yeah. Because I wanted to have time. The other thing I would say is everybody's watching you. Not to see if you're going to mess up, but I was putting out a sign. I'm a state rep right now, and I was putting out a sign on 22nd in Broadway. It's a Black neighborhood. And I heard this car pull up beside me. And when I looked around, it was a little old lady and a 12-year-old girl. The 12-year-old girl jumped out of the car and said, "Ma'am, she's like, do you think you can introduce me to Pam Stevenson? I want to help her win." That's all our kids want to be successful. Nobody grows up saying, "I want to be in a gang and go to jail and walk the streets." Nobody says that. We have failed our kids. So she was very happy when she found out I was me.
Yes, yes, yes.
And her grandmother was so happy, and her grandmother was just so thankful that I stopped what I was doing to talk to her daughter. But that's our future.
Yeah.
And then the other part is we were at a rally at my house. We had a meeting at our house, and I said, "Bring your children. They can eat and they can listen." And they call me Pam Pam. So the question was, why do you want Pam Pam to win? And when we got around to this little 6-year-old girl, she was hiding behind her mom and dad. She didn't, and they said she's shy. She never talks in public. So don't ask her the question. She took her thumb out of her mouth, got in the center of the adults, and said, "I want to talk. I want Pam Pam to win. Because if Pam Pam wins, that means I can win too." Now, how does she know at 6 she can't win? And then right behind that is the desire to win. We've got to create an environment for our children to win and run this world.
Yes.
Do something now.
Yeah.
Don't wait.
Yeah. There's what is that poem that they start out? It's real short and says, "I only have a minute, 60 seconds in it. I can't refute it," and it goes on down and if we would live like that, then we only have a short time. That is a beautiful story. The woman said that if the little girl who said, "Can you introduce me to?" That's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. So
it just touches my heart when I think there are kids that are hungry. I go to schools all the time. Kids are fun to deal with. Adults, gotta eat my Wheaties. And they always want to know about what it is to be a state rep. And I tell them that in 5 minutes. And I said, but what I really want to know is, what kind of world do you want to live in? And they create it, and it's beautiful. And then the second thing is, what do you want adults to know? And they tell me. Like the first time they said to me, Why won't they protect us? I started crying, and they were like, "You can't cry in front of the kids." I'm like, the kids understand. I said, give me a moment. But the third class I was in, when another student said the same thing, it became clear to me it's a when I will be shot and not a if. Somebody walks down the hallway and they jump. We have failed them. And we've said that it's okay for our children to be at risk. What kind of adults will they be growing up in fear? We don't know. So now is the time. I always use the elevator example. You know, when we try to catch the elevator, especially we got to go to the 20th floor. If the door is closing, we will put our arm out to stop the door from closing. That elevator door could break our arm, but we're not going to miss it. And I'm saying the same thing. Put your whole body in to stop the fall of democracy. Whatever it takes, do a little bit more. Everybody's doing great things, but apparently we have to do more. And I will often say, look, the way I decide what I'm going to talk about, what I'm going to fuss about, because there's a whole bunch. And I always talk about the vulnerable, the elderly, the disabled, children, and veterans. They don't have a big lobbying base. So I will always stand for them. It's something as simple as if this world were designed by a person in a wheelchair, the walk across the street button will be here instead of here. Simple things that we can do, that we don't do. And sometimes, especially right now, when it looks like things are falling apart, they could be coming together. We don't know. The only thing we can do is lean in and do the work so it can come together. And I decide what I'm going to talk about by right now this year is structural. Like it's almost like you're trying to pick out paint colors for the living room, paint colors for the bedroom, but the house is on fire. The house is on fire. It doesn't matter who you like or love if there's not going to be a country left for you to like or love them in.
So as we are approaching, first of all, we could talk for the next 3 hours as far as I'm concerned, but we do have to wrap this up for the people. Election season, election is coming up. What do we need to know and what do we need to do?
Here's what you need to do. You need to engage your circle of influence. First of all, make sure they're registered. If they're not registered, have the hard conversations. Get them registered. The only way we can take back this democracy is by voting. It's what it's built on. Nothing else is going to work. You must vote, and your whole circle must vote. While they're complaining about it doesn't make any difference, push them to the polls. We must have the backbone that the people had for the Montgomery bus boycott when we go to vote. When I was out at when COVID first happened, I saw people in wheelchairs, in walkers, in canes, going to the fairgrounds to vote. You know how hard it is to get to the fairgrounds, and once you get there, you still got a long way to walk. They were not going to be denied the right to vote because their grandmothers and their mothers had died for it. We must get anybody you talk to for the next 70 days. Are you registered? Get registered. Where are you going to vote? And it doesn't matter. I just want them engaged. Of course, I want them to vote for me, but I want them engaged. Get them engaged. You have power over your circle of influence. You have more power than you think, and you're not using it. Getting a text from me is one thing, but a text from their bestie is another thing. Get involved. Vote. Get your circle to vote. Save democracy. This is not business as usual.
I am so excited about what you bring and what you do. I was thinking sometimes when people reference voting or whatever. It's like, well, there's always something else. We get them in, and then we got something else to fight. And I was reading one day in Disruptive Thinking by Bishop Jakes. One of the lines he wrote in it, he said, "The prize for winning the fight is the right to enter into the next fight."
That's right. That is beautifully said. And he also said, using the story of David and Goliath, that if we're going to become who we want to be, we've got to meet our Goliath.
And run towards
David would still be a shepherd boy if he hadn't listened to God and stood up to Goliath. So we got a lot of work to do, but we're the people to do it. We got the stock, and I will be amiss. If you want any information about my campaign, it will be pam4ag.com. Anything you want is there. But what I want you to hear from me is, no matter what's going on in your life, no matter what's happening, this country belongs to you. Love the people in your life. Yeah, they're going to make you mad. That's what humans are built for. But that doesn't relieve you of the obligation to talk straight in love. It doesn't relieve you of the obligation of dealing with your government and having it be a government for the people, by the people, to serve the people. Look what Jesus did. That's all he did, was deal with the government and hold them to account. Yes, sometimes we get in and they only come back the next 4 years. They go church to church to church. It's because we're not holding them accountable. That's a we problem and not a they problem. Once we ask them, what about these 10 things you promised? And then don't give, and then hold them to account while they're doing the work, not when they come to church. Every year, make an appointment to see the governor. Write a letter. Make an appointment to see your council person. Write a letter. I care about this issue. Where is the dog park in West Louisville? I've asked for 5 years straight. I don't have an answer. Who do I need to talk with? Hold them accountable. And then tell all your friends that love dogs, let's have a march for the dogs down on 6th Street. Then they say, wait a minute. There are a lot of dog people. Where are the cat people? That's how you get power. We got to exercise that muscle. It's a continuous engagement.
Well, you have given the people your website. You've given us our marching orders. Now, how, for those people who don't go to websites and they go to social media, let people know how they can follow you on social media as well.
Oh, yeah. I am Pam for AG everywhere. Pam, and I spell out the word FORAG.com. Everywhere. You go to pamforag.com, all the websites and all this. I say that because I'm learning, getting used to social media. My daughter, whom I love dearly, called me and said, Mom, you've been duetted. And I said, I haven't sang with anybody. And she says, I'm talking about TikTok. I'm like, I knew that. I was just testing to see if you knew what it was.
Well, I want to once again thank you for this time again. I really do. One of the things that reminded me when you were talking about how you have even measured different by 90. I want to have all these different things. And in the final page of Nelson Mandela's book, he said, I spent my life to climb to the top of the hill, a bit winded and tired. I sat down exasperated and a bit in shock because I spent my life to climb this mountain to get to the top, only to find out that there are more mountains to climb. So I think I'll sit here and rest a while. So it is my prayer for you that as you did all these different journeys, these different mountains, that you'll be able to rest a while, get back to watching Housewives and all those different things.
So just so you know, I put in 6 quilts in the fair this year, and my quilt won 2nd place.
Well, that you'll be able to make quilts, watch Housewives, and all this stuff, so you'll be able to face the next mountain that you have engaged. I appreciate you so much for this time and this conversation. Those of you who have been streaming or listening to this podcast, I hope that you are empowered, that you are getting ready to make your voice heard, and you're going to rally and text your friends, and you're going to not just go populate her website, but you're going to populate your phone, your text messages, and all that, so that we can get to these polls and make our voice heard with our vote. So thank you all for streaming in. Thank you for watching this episode. This has been another episode of Uniquely Designed. And as always, continue to embrace your own unique design.